actually, especially with these plays, for me, is to actually be able to look at people and as the narrator, because I am telling them the story.
So true.
So that's a level of intimacy which is really, really lovely to experience.
Be really nice to indulge in that and tell the story quite personally. How long have you been acting?
My first professional job, it was a student acting ASM, which I used to call the back end of a dog's body.
Oh.
So it was, I used to do stage management roles. Student meant they didn't need to pay me very much at all. And acting meant acting as well. And that was 1966, April 1966, at the Marlowe Theatre in Canterbury.
Wow. And how long did you stay that job?
I was, my dad paid my rent, which was £5 a week, and I was paid £2, 10 shillings a week. And after about a year, playing small roles and doing stage management things, falling asleep, when we were taking sets apart and stuff like that at 2 o'clock in the morning. And after about a year, I said to the production manager, I said, look, I can't afford to do this anymore. So they gave me a pay rise.
Oh.
£5 a week.
Rent.
So my dad stopped giving me
the
money. So I was no better off.
Yay.
And so I left soon after that and went to work at the Bristol Old Vic as an actor. And then I got invited back to the Marlowe Theatre some months later for my first lead role in a play as an actor, which was playing Jim Hawkins in Treasure Island.
Treasure Island,
Yeah.
wow.
With the late, great Australian actor Ronnie Falk playing Long John Silver, and Noel Tovey, Australian as well, playing one of the campest pirates you can imagine. Used to make us laugh every night.
Whoa, wow.
Yeah.
That's quite similar to my story.
Please tell.
When in year 4 I played Captain Buglebottom of a play of the same title.
Captain Buglebottom.
Yep. And I won an award for that, which was a little key ring with a skull on it, with 2 very blue eyes. Yeah.
Buglebottom. I'm sorry, that is a very funny name.
That is. I can't even. I've since tried to search up that story. I don't know who wrote it. If anyone out there knows what I'm talking about, please send me a copy, and I guess I'll sign it for you or something. Yeah.
Very good. Well, let me ask you, what was the first professional production you ever got cast in?
Wow. Excellent question. It is this. This is my first professional... Oh, no, actually, I mean, I did a kids' show last year where I got paid a rate.
Oh, well.
This is my first theatre professional gig.
Right.
Yeah. It's a big
job to start with, isn't it?
Big journey, and I'm excited I'm on it.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. And I have to say, I think he does a fantastic job.
Oh,
I watch with admiration. One of the things that being a senior actor is I really love it when I see young actors doing work that I'm envious that I wasn't able to be as good as that when I started.
That's so sweet. But I'm sure also you had people admiring you in your youth, as I do right now. Yeah. What made you decide to want to be an actor in the first place?
Well, I guess like a lot of actors, it really started in high school. But the thing before then, when I think I was probably about 9 or 10 years old, I grew up with my grandparents, and my grandmother used to take my cousin Avril to a dance school. And one year they needed some extra people to be in their pantomime. I can't remember what the pantomime was. But myself and two other boys were roped into it, sort of thing. And I remember we were literally wearing sacks with a hole cut out for the neck and arms, and did something on stage, and the audience laughed like crazy. And it was like, oh, this is nice. Anyway, then I went to high school, King John Secondary Mod, as it was called then, in Hadley in Essex in the UK. And they had a very, very strong drama department. And that's sort of what really got me interested.
Right. You know. So it was quite prevalent in school.
Yeah, very much so. And the role, I got my first ever review playing, would you believe this, in a high school? I was playing Azdak in the Caucasian Chalk Circle.
Oh, wow.
Play.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, that's how adventurous that school was.
Yeah, wow.
And so it was like, after that, it was, this is what I want to do, you know. So I left school early. I sort of got scared of exams, so I left school before all the exams started, and I went to the local tech college to major in drama. And when the exams were coming up, I got scared of those, so I looked in the industry paper called The Stage, which is still going, and I saw a job advertised for a student acting ASM, and I applied and I got it and went to the Marlow Theatre in Canterbury.
That's amazing. Do you still do you still hold a certain fear for exams when they come up?
Yeah, I haven't sat any exams for a long time. I think the last exam that I would have sat was a driving exam, and that was 50-something years ago. So, what are some challenges about acting at Griffin?
Challenges? Couple of exciting ones are definitely the stage space, this kite shape that we've got here, because the points where you want everyone to see what's happening are very few and far between because of it. It presents some exciting diagrams, I suppose, for people in terms of proxemics, but also sometimes you just got to pick and choose who you're gonna work with. So I found that a bit challenging, and just working so intimately as well with the theatre space. What's another challenge? there is this screen of fog that happens in this entrance here.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to come on in a blackout.
Yeah.
And my eyes are really open and the fog just gets in them. And then every time I think my contacts are about to pop out right before I go on stage. But they're just got to blink quite a bit.
Yeah.
And luckily it rights itself.
But just going back to the thing about the physical challenges in terms of spatial awareness, one of the things that I was very aware of when we were rehearsing, even not necessarily when we moved in here, but when we were rehearsing in the space at the university, Declan, our director, his awareness of the space.
So familiar.
Yeah, so familiar with it. So placing us in the right positions. And once we got in here, a lot of adjusting going on. So there's a lot of that, which as an actor, you're dealing, are we not dealing with, not only am I, in a good place, but also adjusting that in terms of, how do I play this scene in this position, because it just feels unnatural or, whatever. I mean, being up in the neck, as it's called, up at the bottom end of the kite, can present a lot of problems, can't it?
Yeah.
Because you've got to remember there's actually people behind you.
Yes.
And to stay right at the back there, you've got all of the steel strings, I guess they are, on the stairs that you feel are blocking.
But traffic as well coming through from there, and all those bits.
Yeah.
What do you love about acting here at Griffin?
The intimacy, really. This is my third play here. It's been quite a few years since I was last here with Daniel Keen's play The Night Watchman. And what was interesting about that play for me was my character was blind.
Right.
And I knew that looking out, like, you know, through the audience like that was going to be very challenging, because as soon as I look at you, and as soon as our eyes pass each other, we can see each other. And there is that, you know, the cliche, the eyes are the doorways to the soul, or whatever. So that process really got me worried, because I wanted to be blind and not be able to have that moment where our eyes connect.
Yeah.
And it's like you see into me and I see into you, or whatever. So I actually went and got some contact lenses that were completely out of focus. So I could look and I could see a pink blob for a face, but I could not make eyes out at all. So I couldn't actually have that contact, which was a great relief. The previous play, Rabbit, I suppose part of the highlight for that was I was stark naked for a big chunk of it.
Oh, wow.
And of course, when you're, only 3 feet away from people who are sitting there like this, and you're stark naked, that's a bit challenging.
Yeah.
So the intimacy thing...
A rich part of Griffin history is what I hear it called.
But it is, it's fantastic to be able to, actually, especially with these plays, for me, is to actually be able to look at people and as the narrator, because I am telling them the story.
So true.
So that's a level of intimacy which is really, really lovely to experience.
Be really nice to indulge in that and tell the story quite personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much. When you think about it, what lies at the heart of the Louis trilogy?
Age-old tale, but I do think it's love. I think that comes in many forms: intimacy, community, passion, love of theatre, definitely for relevant in Cosy. Community, definitely relevant in This Much Is True. Intimacy, Summer of the Aliens, I think, I think love does lie at the heart of it all. Doesn't mean it's telling the same story over and over again. But
No, not at all.
It's genuine and pure, and it's there.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I agree, and I'm also, I guess I'm thinking of our central character, Louis, getting confused there, Louis, who has, as the young man, as the 20-something-year-old, and as the senior, the idea of trying to understand what he's feeling, because in Summer of the Aliens, he's really struggling, isn't he, with how to deal with these feelings that I have. How to deal with the feelings about my father and my mother and grandmother, which I have to say is, I think that relationship, I grew up with my grandparents, so my grandmother was very, very important to me. So that relationship that young Louis has with his grandmother is,
It's beautiful.
Yeah, I just see it, I understand it very, very much. So that sense of this person trying to find their place in the world, as well, which is fabulous. And the wonderful thing with This Much Is True is that you get a sense that he has found his place in the world.
Yeah.
He's a successful writer. He's got his community, so it's a really lovely journey from what the hell's going on? Why is everybody so weird? To, wow, look at these weird people, aren't they wonderful?
Yeah. I also like, touching on that, I also like that we end up still with this, even with the things that he's found about love, there is still this frustration that occurs within daily life that isn't shied away from. It's not like Louis learns the whole lesson.
Yeah.
At the end, he's right. Yes, he's a successful writer, but he's writing for TV because he's blocked things. He's drinking down at the pub, probably to just, I don't know, soothe some wounds or try and think if the next thing's going to spill onto the page. There's still a desperation there, and it's the noticing of where he's come from and the love that still surrounds him today. That takes up the bulk. Yeah. What is something that I admire about your practice?
What is something you admire about?
What do I admire about your acting practice? I'd say that I admire your responsibility to the audience. I think you hold them in high regard, and you hold your role in such a regard that you feel the mantle of narrator and storyteller. I think when people watch you, especially in this, I do admire how just clear you are, because there are so many crazy things that happen within all of these plays, but at the center of it is Louis. At the center of it is Louis present, and someone needs to steer the ship, and I think that is you, and I think you do that with a complexity, but also just a distillation as well. Yeah.
It's very interesting. One of the things that I guess I didn't realize until we actually did have an audience here, the first few times, that standing outside of the action, so to speak, I sometimes felt, gee, what play am I in? Because, it's like all of this stuff going on with these crazy characters, and there's this straight narrator. So I felt quite disjointed for a long time, and I think it's probably, in terms of, as an actor, feeling comfortable in a positive way, not in a sort of, oh yeah, everything's cool, man, whatever I'm doing is perfect, But I mean, that sort of comfortable way of saying, I think I understand what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
That has actually allowed me now, as the narrator, to feel that the narrator is part of the story.
Yeah.
Is not just on the outside.
And you definitely find moments of cheekiness and that playfulness.
Right.
In order to, it makes our present Louis feel like he wants to jump back in time at these points, because you just, you do. You indulge in those little moments and let the audience feel that, and then pop back in and be like, okay, we're moving on with the story now. This is the next part that I want you to see.
Isn't one of the, I don't know how you experience it, but I think one of the really interesting things, especially in Summer of the Aliens, is, when I talk to you, when senior Louis talks to young Louis and says, what do you want to be? What are you thinking? And then also that extraordinary moment of looking through, looking through the window, through the curtains at what's happening. And then, of course, the climax, I guess, in terms of Senior Lewis's memory of his emotional journey is stop, go back. Do what you actually want to do. Don't be a coward, but and living the rest of your life with that memory of that. I'm going to use the word failure to do what you want to do, and it's not like you failed the exams or whatever. It's just this sense of loss, which, as he says in the last play, she haunts me still, years and years and years later. So I think, for me, that's one of the exciting things in what we do together. Is these moments of shared stuff, which is fantastic.
And that his emotions just become so much more immediate, especially in summer. They become so much more immediate as time goes on. There feels like there is this distance between the narrator at the start of the story, because the memories aren't, there's an urge, it feels like there's an urge to tell the story, but not necessarily the desire to relive. And then that ultimately progresses and comes to a head where there is this raw and utter moment where he wants to be back there.
We share a character in the Lewis trilogy, as we've been discussing, but at very different stages of Lewis's life. How do you think Lewis changes between your role and my role?
It's fascinating going from the end of Cosy. And that's why I like to say that is quite affirming it seems quite affirming for Lewis. And also quite strange that we hear nothing about it, really. We don't hear from him from the time he starts to try to write to the time where it seems like he's stopping with his font, or like he doesn't know what to write next. And you do wonder what happened within those years. But of course, life happened for Louis, and relationships and a successful career and everything like that. He stops to look back. And I think during those years where he is changing, he's starting to reminisce and feel things about his past. He experiences them in their moments, and he recalls great memories from them. And then, of course, he writes about them. And he writes stories about them. And maybe he gets himself to a point where he's expounded what is of himself. So he doesn't, I don't know, he just doesn't feel like writing about anything inside him anymore. And I think that's where we kick off with This Much Is True, where he realizes the immediacy of his surroundings again.
Yes, it's a bit like what we were saying earlier, wasn't it, about that journey from there to finding himself in a place where he, as opposed to not understanding people, which is what he says in the first play several times. I still didn't understand them. I was glad to be away from people because I don't understand them, to being in the final play where there's no judgment. These are just people, and make of them what you will, which is almost what I end up saying at the end, isn't it? You might think this is all fantasy or whatever, but we know it's not.
We know otherwise, No, it's very true. Bye.